Hello everybody and welcome to Out of the Blue. This week we've got a slightly different episode which features the speech that I gave at the recent MAC Growth and Merger Conference. This was an event that drew together experts from a host of different areas, all of which lend themselves to developing effective MAC growth. Feedback from the event has been fantastic, with so many multi-academy trusts now realising the critical role that an effective brand can play in developing focused marketing and communications that actually provide results. So I really enjoyed presenting. I'm really enjoying meeting lots of people following the event, and we thought it'd be great for anybody that didn't manage to attend to be able to watch that presentation. So about 20-25 minutes long, lots of useful information in there. Hope you enjoy it. Bye-bye.
We are now on to a really important topic, an understatedly important topic, which is the importance of branding during periods of growth. And with that, we welcome Mark. How are you, Mark?
Yeah, very good. Nice to see you again, Matthew. How are you?
Yes, yeah, not too bad, thank you. Well, I'm only 20 minutes away from yourself, so if I'm assuming right, it's probably a pretty miserable day where you are.
It absolutely is, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I believe that you've got a presentation, so whenever that is ready, we can crack on. But yeah, just to introduce Mark, a brilliant person within the sector, does some great work with some trusts on a number of subjects around branding, trust growth. So with that, I will give the floor to yourself, and 20 minutes starts now.
Thanks, Matt. I'll try and live up to your wonderful introduction. I'm hoping everyone can see my screen. I'm going to assume that they can, unless someone comes on and tells me otherwise. So, hi everybody. Thank you for joining me for this session. And I've entitled this "The Importance of Branding and Marketing in MAC Growth." And before I sort of get into that, I just wanted to chat you through very quickly, I suppose, who I am and why I'm qualified to talk to you on this topic. So I'm Mark Davis. I'm the sales director for Blue Apple Education, and we are a creative design company. So we get involved with schools and colleges and basically get involved with everything to do with the way that they market and communicate. And we only work within education. So as you can imagine, we get to know the trials and tribulations and the challenges and targets of those schools, nurseries and colleges. I personally talk around this subject constantly, basically. I imagine people get bored of me chatting about this sort of thing, but I appear at various events across the country, obviously online nowadays. I recently appeared on the Friday Club, which is a great video blog hosted by our friends at Virtual School Experience. So I'm on a recent episode of that, but also on different events across the country that really need an insight into why marketing and branding is important and how it can help schools and trusts. I also host a weekly video blog myself. It's called Out of the Blue, and along with some of my colleagues, we chat around all of the different topics around marketing and communications for schools, but we also bring in different guest speakers and they talk about all sorts of different subjects. You can see there we had Justin Smith in to talk about generating funds and grant applications for schools. So lots and lots of different information on there. It's available on our website. Do go and take a look at that. So as you can see, I am pretty much submerged in school marketing and branding. I spend my life basically chatting to schools, chatting to multi-academy trusts, and really helping to get to grips with their marketing and how we can make it more effective. So Blue Apple Education, just to give you an idea of our approach, the reason I wanted to talk about this is I think our approach helps give all schools and trusts two fundamental things that if they focus on and if they have a handle on, then they will eventually have effective marketing and communications, or certainly the starting point of that. The first one we call unearthing the remarkable. This is all about developing a brand and developing a brand message. So from our point of view, it's a commitment to a trust to make sure that we learn who they are and what they're about and what that means on a daily basis, how that manifests itself. So really getting under the skin of the trust. And the reason that we do that is that's a really important thing to understand if we're then going to help them create a website or a promotional brochure or a film or whatever it is that we're going to help them with. So we call that unearthing the remarkable. We'll talk a little bit more about that today. But the second thing is probably the biggest mistake that I see in marketing within education, and it's around producing results. It's making sure that a product isn't worked on for the sake of working on it. So I very often see websites that get created, but there's no focus within that website on what the actual challenges and goals of the Multi-Academy Trust are. It's not there to produce results, it's just there because you're supposed to have a website. And that sounds really obvious, I know, but I see that all of the time. I talk to lots of trusts where that is historically what's gone on. There's been this focus on a product and not on what you're actually trying to achieve with it or with your strategic marketing as a whole. And also just to mention that it's really important and getting more important, and certainly lots of the speakers today have been talking about the changes that we've seen and the need for trusts to consider where they sit in terms of their growth and how they're going to approach growth, if at all. So we also offer strategic help with that. So helping trusts match their marketing and communications activity with their growth strategy and their growth plans, which is obviously a really important thing to do. So that's me in a nutshell. That's what I get involved with. And I just want to talk to you about why what I talk about is so important to trusts and schools. So why is it that a strong brand identity is important for you guys? So a number of reasons. The first one is that we are seeing a huge amount of competition, and that is snowballing and increasing all of the time. More trusts than ever are actually recognizing that their effective brand and marketing can help them, and so they're making strides towards improving that. And we've seen lots of trusts recruiting marketing managers. So obviously a real focus on being strategic and being effective. Just a little word of caution there for anybody that is considering a marketing manager. I've certainly seen this fashion for, I suppose, going to market and asking for a marketing manager to come into a trust. So I saw a trust recently, I think it had about 14 or 15 schools, and we're recruiting a part-time 2 days a week marketing manager and the job description said to look after all of the marketing activity for the trust and our schools. You're going to need Superman to do that. Anybody in a part-time role for 2 days, there's no way on earth that they're going to look after all of the marketing activity for a trust and all of the schools and actually be effective in doing that. So just considering how you're approaching that and what your strategy for effective marketing is going to be. And what we find that actually marketing managers can become almost like a project manager, so they can sit centrally and then farm out the work and manage the activity to make sure that they've got an overview of what's going on, and that can be a bit more effective. And obviously another reason why that sort of increased competitions is growth plans, targets, additional funding have led to lots of trusts seeking out companies like myself, some of the partners that I work with, the consultation firms that will come in and really get to grips with what's going on. So there's lots of competition out there, and what's important is that you have the loudest voice. So the trust has the loudest voice for its audience. If you consider a school that was looking to join a trust, they have lots and lots of options open to them, an increasing number of options. So considering what information is available to them to help them make a decision. So regardless of what that information says, it's actually, is the information there? How easy is it to access? Does the trust have a louder voice than all of the other ways that schools are going to gather information? So that word of mouth, the reputation that the trust might have, other schools and how they talk about you, what does that look like? So our work makes sure, and the work of other people in our sort of role, make sure that the voice of the trust is the loudest one. And obviously that's going to be really, really important. When you've got that, so when you've got this loud voice, it's all about what you say, and that is all about reflecting the visions and values of your trust. So that unearthing the remarkable I talked about earlier is making sure that it's very, very clear what you offer, who you are, what you're about, the flavour and the nature and the character of your trust, and making sure that that's being evidenced, that you're giving people a trust in your trust, a trust in that, something they can believe in and they can hang their hat on. So giving schools a reason to engage with you and ultimately choose to join the trust, so giving them lots and lots of confidence. The fourth reason really is something that gets raised with me a great deal at the moment, and it's to do with internal communications, kind of around that question of how do you merge the character and the branding of a trust with the individual character and branding of its constituent schools, which can be really, really tough. So the way that you can do that is that by developing a very strong trust brand character, you can then foster this feeling of togetherness, and you can create communication topics that are constant and familiar and that schools can adopt. And that can really help bring those internal communications and the communications that schools make externally in line and give them an overall branding feel. That really links back to strong staff recruitment and development of staff and making them feel part of your trust. So some of the common issues that I come across when I chat to CEOs and COOs of trusts is basically that there's very often a lack of marketing experience within a trust. So lots and lots of professional development has gone on, and marketing often, not always, but often has lagged behind. And quite often what goes hand in hand with that is a lack of trust in marketing effectiveness. Certainly senior leadership teams that have come through education and created trusts often have never really seen marketing that has worked. I haven't seen that process of setting targets and goals, applying marketing theory and marketing strategies, and seeing a result at the end of it. So there's just that lack of belief that you can have an effect, that it will work. You know, well, we've got a website and it still doesn't attract schools. That kind of comment that you can hear. Some of the very common issues is trusts that have a very vanilla brand and brand messaging. So very familiar phrases and terminology that they use that just gets lost, completely lost in this ocean of similarity. Lots of trusts saying the same thing, and lots of trusts with a lack of strategy and no plan, which really leads to this reactive style of marketing, which is really ineffective. It's very costly to do that. So without a plan, without setting budgets and knowing how you're going to spend that money on effective marketing, can lead you to spend more money than you ever intended to on marketing that doesn't really work and isn't effective. So where do you start? It's all right me sitting here telling you what all the problems are and all of the issues that we come across, but what I want to do is to just give you something that you can make a start on, or that should help. And if you feel like you've already made a start with regards to this, then stepping back and just seeing how effective that has been. So where you start is the remarkable of your trust. Ask that question. In fact, right now, grab a pen and a piece of paper and just think about an answer to this. What's remarkable about your trust? And what we're talking about here is that first impression. What type of multi-academy trust are you? So what would that first impression that you'd want to present be? What makes you different? What makes you tick? What differentiates you from any other trust? And just a note of caution, we're not talking about being different for different's sake. We'll get onto that in a little while, but it really is what's true to you and what people value in your offering. The reason that we talk about that, and obviously try and get that down on a piece of paper, you'll find it really useful, and I'll give you some ideas as to what to do with that in a little while. But the reason we do that is some obvious things. First impressions matter. I don't really need to preach to you about that. I'm sure you all know, and you've probably told students constantly that the way that they dress and the way that they look is really, really important. It's second nature that we do that. And we know that people make judgment calls very, very quickly. I've said within a second there on screen. We're not saying that a potential school looking to join the trust has made their mind up within a second, but they will have made judgment calls. So before they've gone and read your welcome message and viewed your visions and your values, etc., they've made a decision within a second of whatever it is that they saw. And those impressions could be really hard to change. You can be working against the flow if you've made the wrong impression right at the front end. Just to give you some idea, this is an example I've used quite a lot, and it's an example of a school logo. So I often ask people just to describe what that logo represents, the sort of school that it represents. The sorts of answers that I get back when I ask that question, people will say that they feel like the logo represents an independent, very traditional school with a focus on the academic, probably. It's got that achieving the best statement at the bottom, so possibly results driven. Very often people say secondary feeling to them, and it's hard to argue against that. That is the sort of feeling that most people, not everybody, but most people tend to get from that logo. Now, we're being a little unfair. We're taking a logo in isolation. I'm not giving you any other information, but to give you an idea of how you can create a first impression very quickly with very little information, this kind of shows you how that can happen, because this logo is actually from a special school, and it's a special school that offers very specialist provision, and it's for pupils with profound physical and mental disabilities. Now, what I'm not telling you there is anything really about the nature and the character, the remarkable of the school. I've just told you who the school is, effectively, what they are, and already their logo is completely out of kilter. It's hopeless. It's so off where it needs to be in terms of reflecting the type of school they are. And as I say, we've not even got on to why they're different from other special schools and what makes their character unique, etc. Okay, so just come back to this question: what's remarkable about your trust? And if we just expand on that a little bit, some of you now may have something written on paper, and there's a little exercise I'm going to get you to do after today's session that you'll be able to come, the information I'm going to present now will become really important to you to make sure that it's effective. So just expanding on your thoughts behind what's remarkable in your trust. If you've got answers like the trust has a family feel, we provide centralized services, and there's lots of other things that essentially, if you're honest, are very common themes behind the way that trusts describe themselves. If you think about it, would it be possible for a trust to say, the opposite of what you're talking about? Is it particularly unique? What you need to do is to take a look at what other trusts are doing in the area and just seeing if your message is standing up against them. Is everybody talking about a family feel, about centralized services, allowing schools to focus on education? Because if they are, then your message might be true, but it's not really going to help you stand out or attract a school. So if you were a school looking to academize, which of the local trusts would you actually choose? Which one makes the best first impression? Who would you engage with? The way that you can get some handle on that is to take that remarkable, to take the phrase that you've put down, the words that you've put down, and then try to tell stories around it that that provide evidence to it, that demonstrate that you're remarkable, show people evidence that they can believe and that they can trust. We know from studies that have been done that human beings like to see narratives. We look for narratives everywhere. We believe more and we buy into more if information is presented to us as a story and as a narrative. So that's a really important element and something that's really easy to do. It costs you nothing to consider ways that the character and the nature of your trust can be exemplified in things that have happened and stories that have gone on. So when you leave today, when you get back to the trust, I'd like you to ask this question of the trust staff, of the schools, the SLT within the schools and their staff, and other stakeholders, and just see what answers they come back with. You might be surprised what other people value in provision. Ask parents, ask pupils, and then consider, once you've got all of that together and you can recognize all of the things that people value in you and value in the trust, is that actually being reflected in the way that you're marketing and communicating? Are you showing that? Or is your marketing and communications very vanilla and very similar to what other people are saying? If you take this example, Hummersnot Academy Trust, this is very familiar to lots and lots of Academy Trust websites that I see. They're very functional. All of the information's there. They're not going to get told off because the information about the formation of the trust, the structure of the trust is all in there, but there's nothing really in there that is branded to the trust or gives me any idea of who this trust is, what they're about, what makes them tick, what the flavour of this trust is, and why perhaps I should engage with them and against some other trust. So we consider that, and we also consider making sure that what we're doing, if you remember right at the top end, I said making sure that what you do produces results. So from a website point of view for a trust, considering what you want a school to do when they arrive on your website. What's the goal? Where should they end up? So if we took this website, for example, and we rebranded, then all of a sudden we've got a brand that gives some flavour to who Strive Academy Trust are, a bit of information in the text that's in that paragraph, and then very quickly a button, very easy button that says join the trust, straight away drawing people into that process of knowing who they are and making sure that we can talk and engage with them. So making this website work for the trust, make it effective, and make the results a lot better. And the information on that website then changes, gives them a little bit more information, a different call to action button, and then again a little bit more information. So all of a sudden, without having to do anything, me as a user visiting this website, I've been presented with so much more, and a nice promotional film right there at the top end would be even more effective. Okay, I'm running out of time, so I'm going to round things up. I'd just like to say, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So if you've seen anything or this has inspired you in any way to try and get a handle on your marketing, then please do go and do the remarkable exercise, and by all means engage with me. Make sure that marketing matters to all staff in your trust. Draw on the experience that's around you. You may be surprised, and we often are, that you'll find people within your trust with experience of lots and lots of different things. We found somebody working in a trust who had experience on a corporate level of managing social media. Nobody knew. They were working in the trust in a completely different capacity. So talk about it. Make sure staff understand what's going on and share those updates regularly. Take advantage, as I say, of my free marketing consultation. That's a chat with myself. There's no obligation to it. We will basically appraise what's going on at the moment and offer some advice as to how it could be improved in line with what you're trying to achieve, and that's really important that's focused on. I also run a school brand identity masterclass. I run it once a month. The next one's October the 12th. There's loads of dates to choose from, obviously one a month. All the details are on our website, so by all means, if you want to try and get a handle on your branding, then please do join that session. You'll get a lot from it. It's an hour and a half. It's all conducted online. Okay, so that is all from me. I think I'm just on time, hopefully there, Matt. Apologies if I'm a minute or two over, but if anybody's got any questions, happy to answer those. And certainly, Matt, if there's any questions you want to send through to me, by all means do so, and I'll always get back.
Brilliant. Attendees, you'll all have a poll just popping up now, so make sure to answer that. Yeah, well, Mark, you got me on the school logo, and immediately I thought independent as well, so that's really interesting. But I do encourage everyone to check out Out of the Blue. Really fantastic show that you do every week, and I think you mentioned at the beginning.
No, well, your episode we want people to watch.
Well, not after you shared a photo of me from, well, what looked like last year, but I think I was 8 years old at the time. But yeah, really good weekly show, and I think you described yourself at the beginning as well immersed within the world of education marketing. So yeah, definitely backed up on that. We've heard a lot about risk through today as well, and I think when you think of marketing and what makes immersive marketing is typically the word risk. I mean, you see it with supermarket brands and a lot of types of companies, but for whatever reason, when it comes to education, you know, it's typically very safe. So I do, again, echo what Mark says. You've got two comparisons there of two trust websites, completely different feel from both of them. I certainly know which one I would kind of align myself with. So no, it's really, really important. Yeah, if you have any closing comments on risk, that would be great.
Yeah, well, just to comment when you were mentioning the sort of websites there, it's evident very often that without spending any additional money, you can make those effective changes to a website. So the build and the design of the website costs the same, but if as a trust you can make demands on whatever company it is that you're using to create it, and those demands are because you have an understanding of your brand, so you're demanding that that's reflected and that the photography is on brand and the messaging is correct, but also an understanding of what those calls to action should be, what you want a user to do when they arrive on the website. And that should be feed into some inquiries system so that you know who they are. Then you've spent the same money, but you get much better results at the end of it. And in terms of risk, Matt, I think it's hard. I think very often it's very, very difficult for a trust to set aside budgets for marketing because it's hard to know how they're going to be effective. So what's important is that there are targets to that. Challenge the companies that you work with. We welcome that, actually, to sit with a trust and say, okay, well, where do we need to be in 6 months and 12 months? Rather than let's talk about a website, actually, let's talk about what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to do. And then as professionals, we'll advise you on the best way of spending whatever funds are available to try and achieve that. But then revisit it. Is it happening? Did it happen after 6 months? What needs to change? What needs to move on? You can't, it's not a one-stop fix. You don't visit marketing, set it up, and then it works forever. It's got to be challenged and it's got to be visited very often. And we welcome that. And lots of other suppliers do as well. You should make that challenge to whoever you're working with.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a closing note for myself as well, the traditional marketing for a school would be typically a prospectus, and it's much more than that now, isn't it? An introduction of all sorts of means to marketing. So brilliant. Well, thanks for your time today, Mark. I hope you've enjoyed the day so far and continue to do so. And just a closing comment from Joelle, who says, Joelle McNichol, saying, thanks, Mark. I was silently applauding in agreement so many times during this presentation.
That's great to know.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, well, thanks for that, Mark, and take care. I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye now, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you for watching Out of the Blue, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and leave a comment below, and please ring the bell for notifications. I hope I will see you again soon. Bye!